Hello, and welcome to another interview from the LLD committee of NCIHC. We're having conversations with languages of lesser diffusion, or in this case, I'm going to introduce Wes Bremer, who works with kind of a mainstream language and also with many, many other languages. So, on that note, Wes, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Mark. My name is Wes Bremer. I work with Luna Language Services and now Globo Language Solutions. Um, I came to Luna after 6 years in education. I was a French teacher, and so I was looking for a new way to use my French skills, and I landed on Luna. I started there as a coordinator and quickly got promoted to training coordinator. And in time, that grew to be that I was a Bridging the Gap instructor. Um, so for the last 4 years, I've enrolled 25 to 30 people in Luna's Bridging the Gap courses every 2 months. And about half the time, I teach the course as well. So as you were saying, I get to work with interpreters of many different languages.
That's awesome. So you are a then licensed instructor for Bridging the Gap.
That is correct. I've taught the course about 10 times now since April of 2021.
Awesome. Do you have any nuggets of wisdom to share from there for interpreters that are just getting started?
We believe that the interpreters are most successful in the course have the right attitude, right? We have interpreters from all walks of life come to Bridging the Gap. Some have interpreted extensively but never had formal training. Some are brand new to interpreting. And really, the equalizer of those two groups is, are you willing to relearn or learn to do interpreting the professional way? And after the course, what is your attitude? Does the learning stop? Or do you continue to study the technical vocabulary and English in your target language? And are you willing to embrace mentoring from other interpreters?
That's awesome. Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for lifelong learning and an attitude of acceptance and willing to learn. That's great. Do you have any stories or is there any feedback you'd like to share from interpreters that have gone through the course and they go out in the real world and come back and say, "Oh, I'd really like to do X, Y, or Z," or "I learned so much, it set me up perfectly," or there's still things that I need to learn. Like, what's the feedback? What do you hear, from the interpreters that are going out in the field?
Well, one particular interpreter comes to mind. His name's Juan, and he's just very committed to learning, like I said, and he really appreciates how difficult interpreting is to really get at the pure impartiality and the near 100% accuracy. And a couple Thursdays ago, we had an event at Globo, Carnival of Cultures, and he was really stressing to me how important note taking is for his accuracy. And I was actually his Bridging the Gap instructor. So it was very affirming for me to hear like that he lives by one of my mantras, that your steno pad and pen is part of the interpreter uniform, and that he really buys into note taking and has that commitment to accuracy. Some other comments that really stuck with me is I had a student last December, Edouard, and he said to me, "Oh, I expected this course to be boring. 2 weekends online with you." And he said it was actually fun. So it's nice when students give that feedback that Bridging the Gap is interactive and even 2 weekends online can be enjoyable.
That's awesome. What are some of the different languages that you work with in your area, the different languages that you've trained with the students?
Yes, I'll start with the big ones: Spanish, Burmese, Arabic, French, and Haitian Creole. Um, but we also have the Burmese dialects, of course, like Hakachin, Vlamchin, Mizochin, Tigrinya, and Amharic. Those in Swahili, those are languages for which we're eager to have more interpreters. Um, Indianapolis is actually a pretty big hotspot for refugee resettlement. So the crisis in Afghanistan, Dari, Farsi, Pashto have been languages that we need more of. Yeah, but
Very cool.
I've in the 4 years that I've done enrollment and the 2.5 years that I've been teaching, probably I've seen about 40 different languages come through the program.
That's pretty impressive, which is a lot of diversity for Indianapolis, right? So very good. Are there any differences you see in other than, probably volume of assignments or whatnot, in feedback or comments from the different languages that you've trained?
Well, the rarer languages, obviously they're eager to have more work, and so it's harder for them to keep their skills sharp if they're not getting assignments as consistently. Some of our Spanish language interpreters might get 2, 3, maybe 4 assignments per day, and so they're definitely well practiced. Um, Swahili, it's hard to find a reputable dictionary for Swahili. So for some of those, languages of lesser diffusion, the resources aren't there. For example, um, when I went through Bridging the Gap myself, I created uh, vocabulary list for 7 of the 10 body systems that we taught. So the French language participants come through, they get those lists ready made from me. And then one of my very diligent Spanish students, she took my model and put the terms in Spanish. So I think the resources are lacking for some of those more rare languages, even, like formally published glossaries.
Very good. But that methodology that you put together for French and then the Spanish student used as well, it seems like it could be something that's English neutral. You can apply it to anything, right? Because it's the methodology,
As
right?
long as someone's willing to be the worker bee and do the work. And yeah, as a former French teacher, I believe we learn vocabulary lists best in context. So, as an interpreter, it was always best for me to have my cardiology, the cardiovascular system ready to go if I did a cardiology appointment, or the musculoskeletal system for radiology. So, that's something else I was trying to impress. Like, you need to have a theme for your vocab list for learning purposes, and it's also a ready-made resource. If you get to an assignment early, you can brush up on your vocab.
Very awesome. Okay. Are there any other tips or comments you'd like to share with, especially the LLD interpreters that are up and coming, or that want to get started in the field of interpreting?
Yes. So we need to educate the general public about language services, specifically interpreting. And this is a fun little tidbit about me and my boss, Na. Two of our biggest pet peeves are the words certified and translate/translation. So uh, interpreters commonly misrepresent their credentials. For some reason, at least in Indianapolis, certified comes off the tongue more easily than trained. So I just encourage interpreters, like, a 40-hour program is typically a training program. So you're trained. Please present yourself that way. And for medical interpreting, if you want to call yourself certified, then you need to pursue that certification through NBCMI or CCHI. Um, and to go along with that, uh, you know, we're interpreters, not translators. So if you encounter people out in the world, correct them gently and have them call it the right way. I sometimes go out and do career fairs, and that's like my icebreaker question. Oh, we're an interpreting and translation company. Do you know the difference between the two? Last point I'll make is interpreters need to advocate for themselves, because some people don't know how to work well with an interpreter. And so if you're consistent with your pre-session, you're teaching people how to work with interpreters, and we're making the expectations more uniform. So for those interpreters who neglect pre-sessions consistently, I just want to challenge you. Um, you're kind of making the work harder for your peers who are going by the standard protocol in pre-sessioning. So yeah,
Very good tips. I'm assuming that everyone that's watching this video is familiar with the NCIHC, right? We have standards of practice. That's exactly right. We want everyone to do the same thing because as a peer of mine says, each of us represents all of us. So if there's somebody doing something different, as you're saying, that's when the doctor will say, but the last interpreter didn't do that. Why do you have to do that? Right? They skipped it, or they held their hand, or they were willing to give him a ride, or whatever the case may be. All of those things don't do, please. But yeah, very good point. The whole following the exact same protocols as everyone else is incredibly important. Just as you'd want any doctor, I think, to follow the same safety protocols, washing their hands, hygiene, all of the things that are standard in the medical profession, right? We also have our standards. And so that's an awesome thing to point out. Thank you so much, Wes. Any closing remarks?
just to go off that, I also encourage my students to be practical. Like you can modify the pre-session, make it shorter. If you've worked with a provider who's consistently demonstrated that she works well with interpreters, then hi, I'm Wes again. Nice to meet you again. Is there anything special I need to know about this session? But use your discretion, but it never is it appropriate to dispense completely with the pre-session. Um, but yeah, it should always be part of your practice. So
That's good. Yep, you have to have rules to break them, right?
yeah, yeah.
You got to establish the norm. Okay, well, very good. Thank you so much, Wes. It's been a pleasure. Looking
Welcome, Mark.
forward to interacting with you more in the future.
Sounds good. Thank you.